Rob.
This was for Cindy.
Okay.
Cindy, for the MTEL exam, if I took the MTEL, say, 2.5 years ago, how long does it have a sort of statute of limitations? It's good, I've taken it, I passed, I'm good, even if I don't get licensure for another couple of years?
Right. Yes, the MTEL doesn't expire.
That's great.
Cindy, also, what happens if you take one part of it, but you didn't take like the subject part? Is there a time period to take both parts?
No, the only time period is you do need to complete all of the required MTELs before you're allowed to student teach. In some sense, the MTEL for Emmanuel College is similar to the MCAS for school systems in terms of the high stakes, because all colleges and universities need to have a certain pass rate for all of the students that they're affiliated with. We sort of have put that sort of gate in place, as many other colleges have, as a way to ensure that we meet the standard that the state has set for us as a college. But we actually recommend that students take the tests on separate days, because it's a long day if you sit down in those testing conditions for what would be 8 hours to take them all at once. So.
Okay, so you said it doesn't expire because I took it like 7 years ago, and I was off by like 2 points. So I already, in my undergrad, I did the teacher certification program, I did the student teaching and all that, but that last time that I took it and I was off by 2 points, I just kind of gave up. But I never stopped working with kids. So, I mean, I still want to be a teacher. What would I have to do now? Do I have to get into another program again and do student teaching again and then do the MTEL again? I know I have to do the MTEL again.
Right. So when you completed your undergraduate program, did you complete student teaching as well?
Yes.
It could be just a matter of needing to pass the MTEL. What may have happened in the meantime, though, is the testing requirements for each license. If it's elementary, for example, those testing requirements have changed. So you would need to meet the current testing requirements. But, if you want to give me a call, we can certainly talk about the specifics of your program and what have you. I'm happy to do that.
Do you suggest taking the MTELs like as soon as possible, like when you first start your program, or?
Yep. I always tell students, my kids play hockey, and their coaches always give them the analogy that you should shoot early and often. And I always tell people that are starting the MIT program, just take the test early in case you have to take them often. The communication literacy skills test is a test of your own ability to communicate with others. It won't be based on anything that you will be learning here in the graduate program. So, assuming you've already been through a bachelor's degree, you've graduated from high school, you've graduated from an undergraduate institution, there's an assumption that you have a certain repertoire of these skills. So I tell people, just even if you're considering getting into the program, as you're getting the application pieces together, go ahead and try that first exam. It is the most manageable of all the tests out there. So sometimes what you don't know is more imposing than what you do, and the longer you put it off, sometimes these things have a way of taking on a life of their own. So the registration deadline for the November exam is October 8th. There's still time to get in and get yourself registered. And as Jay mentioned, we will have test prep getting started. I don't have the schedule yet. It should be starting in the next week or so. And I always tell people, if you don't have the time to commit to the whole 5 or 6 week test prep session, just stop by the first night and pick up the resources that they have, because they're wonderful resources. And then there's a full-length practice exam available right online. So the information sheet over there will take you to the website, and if it's on the left-hand side, there's a link that says test preparation resources, and you can click and take a full-length exam. Just go through it as a trial.
For the test prep course, is it just for the communications and literacy, or do you do a content specific?
So for the fall, leading up to the November exam, we do test prep for communication and literacy. In the spring, we'll do test prep for foundations of reading and also for the math subtest. What they're trying to do is they're trying to do some pilot options in some of the other subject areas, but quite frankly, because we train fewer numbers in each individual secondary area, it's very difficult for us to get a significant enough cohort to run a test prep, say, for biology or Spanish. Where it's a little easier for us to do it in some of the other areas where we have a larger pool to draw from.
Just to add to that, I think there's like test prep books that are available for like $20, $30 on each topic. So
At Barnes and Noble.
and one of the things that I did was I just went to my local library to their book sale, spent like $5 and got a whole bunch of social studies books and just went home and just kept looking at them over and over.
Yeah. You can download the test objectives from the testing website as well, so at least it gives you a sense of the scope of the topics that you'll be expected to know for the exam.
Just a little more than 10 years ago when I took the teacher test, the MTEL, they didn't have any kind of prep books. And that was a good suggestion at Leslie that they offered to us, was to get maybe a 6th grade for the elementary test, to get the 6th grade level textbooks and just review in the different subject areas the information that are in those textbooks. But the test prep books that are out there now are really good.
Can you talk about the pre-curriculum process and which districts are connected to and how you guys do this?
Sure. So at the graduate level, the pre-practicum experiences are connected to individual courses. Because the program runs in an accelerated nature, the pre-practicum becomes somewhat accelerated as well. So students are required to complete 10 hours, 3 separate times. So as part of your Curriculum 2 course that comes up in the spring, you would be required to complete 10 hours in a school. And then for the school administration program as well, there are also 3 courses with the 10-hour requirement. And essentially the output of that experience is really a reflection paper. So you'll have some type of assignment from the faculty member. You go, you complete your hours, and then you connect back to your classroom through that reflection paper. The exact setting of the pre-practicum can happen in one of 2 ways. Most often graduate students have a preference. They like to go to the school that's either near their home or their place of employment, so they can complete the hours sort of on their way to doing something else. And we certainly try to recognize those placements. For those who don't necessarily have a connection or a strong preference, we can place you in a school in this area. We work with schools in our neighborhood area. We work with many of the Catholic schools, and if there's a particular type of school that you're looking for example, if you're looking to go to a pilot school versus one of the Boston exam schools, or those types of things. So we try to accommodate placements within a reasonable radius. And the ultimate goal is that one of those pre-practicum experiences will wind up being your setting for your full student teaching, so that you've already made a connection in the school and perhaps with one of the teachers, so that when you get to student teaching, it's not always the way, but in an ideal world, that would be the perfect path.
But the ultimate goal being that you get a job.
Yes.
Which is what happened to me when I worked in Revere. I student taught there, and then about a year later, they called me and said they had an opening, and that's how I got the job.
Is your MTEL score reported to you as pass-fail or as a numeric number?
It's a very good question. The failures are reported as an exact number, and if you achieve a passing score, you receive a P. That's a somewhat new change, I'd say, within the past 3 or 4 years, because what they were finding out is that school systems, unfortunately, were using MTEL scores as part of the hiring decision, and so no longer is the raw score reported to you, to me, or anyone else. If you achieve the passing threshold is 240. So if you get a 240 and above, the only thing that's reported is a P. if it's below the 240, you'll see your actual raw score, and then you actually get a sub performance score in the 4 categories that are on the test. So you can sort of see the areas in which you may need a little more work.
I know that answering the next question may be very difficult, but I'm going to ask you. I'm going to enter the teaching field relatively late because of an illness that makes my continuing my business impossible to do. So I've always wanted to teach math, and I'm studying all of my math books to prepare to take the exam. Do you have any sense as to how many hours of prep an average person would need to be confident enough that going into the exam they would pass it?
Have you taken a look at the math practice exam?
Yeah.
So the math exams are a little bit different than some of the other exams. There's a progression to the exams. So you can sort of look at this from one side of the coin to the other. If you pass the math exam for high school teachers, the assumption is that you have the skill set for the middle school licensing and the elementary license. So if you looked at it the other way, perhaps as you're trying to bring yourself up to the highest level, maybe if you started with the elementary math exam, sort of took a look at that and had confidence in those areas, and then moved through the progression, went on and took a look at the middle school test, and then eventually work your way up to sort of some of the higher level math skills. It may be helpful in terms of, keeping you motivated and sort of moving towards the ultimate goal. But I would just say that's sort of your best indicator in terms of true knowledge, is just really taking a look at those practice exams, because that's what it is you will have to, those are the objectives you will need to meet. I don't know if anyone else has.
I actually have a question for you guys.
Sure.
In terms of, I feel like any new position, it's a whole different culture you enter in an environment, regardless of the job. But I feel like education may be a little different, because if you're a teacher, you may be working with a teacher team, but you're only seeing a handful of professionals on a regular basis. What kind of recommendations would you give to a new teacher in terms of balancing the politics of starting a new position at a school? Have you seen things that work well for folks? Have you seen things that haven't worked so well for folks?
As far as what they should do in the classroom, as a new teacher?
Yeah, not necessarily in the classroom, but in terms of like my peer-to-peer relationship with my other teachers and administrators in the school setting.
Everybody likes a team player, so you'd want to always, be part of the team. And you're required in schools, it's a system. So, getting to know the school system, there's building-based teams, and there's parent and family engagement teams, and there's all different teams to get on. So I would say, even as a new teacher, you have a lot to contribute, especially if you've been in another career. People that have been in another career, you have tons to contribute. That's one of the great things about, and administrators love to hire teachers that have been in other careers, because you have that real life experience. So I'd say be part of the team. Don't rock the boat too much. Understand that you have to listen and that there's a lot to learn, your first year. But I'd say, jump right in. And hey, if they need an assistant coach on the volleyball team and you've got some experience, go for it. If they need parent and family engagement, that happens to be yours, go for it. Try to get out there as much as possible and come up with ideas. Just make sure you're running by the right people. You follow chain of command. Chain of command is just as important in schools as it is in corporate jobs. Making sure, and usually your mentor teacher will tell you if you have an issue and you want to bring it up. I had one of my mentees wanted to start a dance team at my school. And he's like, I'm going to go talk to, I know Dr. Dakin because he used to babysit me as our superintendent. As a kid, I was like, no, you don't go to Dr. Dakin first. You start with the vice principal and then see what she says and then, so on. And he got a dance team, so it's pretty neat.
I think a couple of things you should keep at the back of your mind as a new teacher. You should observe and listen a lot. Okay? See what's happening in the school, see what's happening with the other staff members. And the other thing I would encourage you to do is take advantage of your interests and your hobbies. Because as was mentioned, if you like athletics and there are coaching jobs available in the school, go for them. Same thing if you got an interest, in art, maybe you work with the art club. If you have an interest with regard to theater, you work with the drama group or the National Honor Society, Student Council. There are a lot of different, organizations that are extremely important to the students and the parents, in a school. You have school councils. There are a lot of opportunities for new teachers to become, involved. You have curriculum committees, textbook adoption committees, you name it. The big thing is, don't overload yourself, okay? Set your limits in terms of, my first responsibility is my classroom and what I'm teaching the students. If I have some extra time, I'd like to do X. And if I still have some extra time, I'll do Y. But don't spread yourself too thin. You also have to have a life outside of the classroom. Okay? You can't take all of your worries every day at home and have them infringe on, your family at home. You have to. Okay? You have to kind of keep things in perspective. But there's always people in a school that will be willing to listen. Whether it's, as I said, your mentor, a guidance counselor, an administrator, whatever. Don't be afraid to take advantage of those people. That's why they're there. They're there to help you succeed. The principal in a building who recommends a teacher to me, if that teacher fails, the principal fails. It's important for us to make you succeed. We are you.
All good things. I was going to say, just suggest humility, especially for a first-year teacher. It may be probably in any position. You just, a rush of arrogance, like, I know what's going on. And if you're quiet, if you listen more, especially to the older teachers, and I've been in enough schools where among new teachers, they come in, they only know the other new teachers, and everyone else just kind of has their groups, so that they stay in the new teacher pod. If you break away from that and you get to know, not that that's negative, but in some ways they're trading their own ignorance. It's the people who are they're not going to rush up to you and say, let me tell you what you should do. You have to be quiet, and they will come to you and then offer advice. If you'll take it, there might be some more. It's been people like that who've really affected me. People who've been around, experienced teachers, and they have a lot to offer, but they won't rush forward. They don't want to overwhelm you. But if you show a readiness or receptivity, they'll offer.
I know you said there's a study group coming up for the MTEL, so we can just go to the website and find it.
You know what? I can actually pass the information along to Jay. Yep. You're talking about the MTEL prep. I'll pass the information along to Jay, and then he can get it out to the people who attended tonight.
Now you said sometimes classes are offered on Saturdays, and you don't have to take a Saturday class. Like, it's depending on what you would choose, because they have, the different days of the week. So a certain course could be offered, maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever day.
So there are a few instances where the class that you need will be offered on Saturday. In those instances, too, I'm fairly certain that they're hybrid versions. And Cindy could probably speak on this better than I could. But in terms of, you have a handful of courses that meet face-to-face here on Saturday morning, and a handful of courses that meet in some kind of online setting using Blackboard, Vista, which is one of our online tools, or if it's a group meeting out of the classroom, There's a lot of different opportunities that arise for that, and then the last few courses you'll need face-to-face. So does that sound right?
So there's actually only one course that's a Saturday course, and it's a crossover. It's in both the school administration and in the teaching program, and it is a hybrid. There are 4 on-campus meetings throughout the 7-week window, and then the other 3 sessions are asynchronous. So you have a 1-week window in which to complete the assignments and post whatever discussions. I'm sure, Michele, you took the hybrid course.
I did. It's integrating technology for the educator, I believe is close to the exact title. It's an excellent course, and you just have as Cindy said, the 4 Saturdays where you can be on campus here in the Science Center in the new building. And then the rest of the time, you're responsible for doing your assignments in a certain time frame and posting them to an online discussion board that Sister Karen Wilkinson, the instructor, sets up for the class. And then you have a responsibility to post your own assignments and also to read and respond to classmates' assignments. It's very manageable. And while I wouldn't want to do Saturday classes all the time, it was nice to have a break from being here from 6 to 10 at night. So.